Hello and welcome to Mad About Sports for yet another live stream. And today we are going to be talking about the fourth Ashes Test match. Now, the series is 2-1 as Australia still lead the series. And England did manage to come back in the last Test match in Leeds with Mark Wood, Chris Woakes, everybody trying to make an inroad, and they did come back as well. But now, after a long break, the Ashes resuming again, and this time around it's going to be in Manchester, the home ground of James Anderson, and that also means James Anderson finds a place in the playing 11, which we'll be certainly talking about as we move ahead in the stream. So, guys, if you're new here, I'm just going to remind you all to not to forget to subscribe to our channel and also give a follow onto our Instagram page, and do check out our courses with Mad About Sports as well. So, without further ado, let's talk about today's match. So, as you all know, Australia and England, this Ashes has been given reminiscence of a lot of 2005 vibes, as a lot of pundits and across the cricketing world. That competition is back on in Ashes after such a long period. In 2015, you saw very closely contested Ashes, but it still was one-sided, you can say. So England did manage to pull out a lot of better results, but here you can say that both the teams are at it. Even though Australia took that lead of 2-0 earlier on, but the margins were very close. You couldn't really say Australia dominated over the two test matches. England were there and thereabouts. Ben Stokes played a blinder. But now that is what we're going to be talking about, especially when it comes to the fourth test match. Now, let's start out by looking into the playing 11, because that's the most important thing. Now, what is up with the playing 11, right? Now, let's start out by looking at the Australian playing 11. They have managed to name a playing 11, which means Josh Hazelwood returns back into the squad. He was left out for squad bowling, and there was also injury scare over him. So score Marcus Flo, Josh Hazelwood returns back, but Mitchell Marsh retains a place. Though Cameron Green comes back into the team, Mitchell Marsh certainly retains a place. Now the interesting thing is Australia is not going with any spinner now, which means Australia will be batting till number 8, which means Cameron Green will be coming in at number 8. Then you'll have Patrick Cummins, Mitchell Starc, George Hazelwood. So zero spinner policy is what Australia have adopted for this test match. And fairly enough so, because in Manchester at times you can get a good surface where the ball tends to move on a lot. And now it's very tough to replace someone like a Nathan Lyon. Todd Murphy is definitely there and thereabouts, but not the caliber of someone like a Nathan Lyon. So Australia have decided to back themselves, going with a full seam attack. Now you'll have Mitchell Marsh, Cam Green, Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, and George Hill, 5 seamers as their options, and Travis Head, if need be, to ball part-time off spin. So that's a phenomenal squad, you can say, in terms of pace, battery, what they have. But now the question again comes to David Warner, isn't it? Because this could be his last tour to England. This is certainly his last tour to England when it comes to test matches, at least. And he's been still getting caught behind the wicket by Stuart Broad running around the wicket and bowling to him. So there's his biggest nemesis. He's not been able to counter it. You saw in patches he was trying to counter it. He's very determined enough to do it. So, but still, David Warner has been falling consistently to Stuart Broad. Australia still has managed to back him. And Usman Khawaja, he would want to come back into form after that first test match heroics. He'd want to come back and score big. Now, the biggest question has been Marnus Labuschagne. Steve Smith did come in terms of runs. Travis did score runs. Alex Carey did chip in. But you have to talk about Marnus Labuschagne has been the disappointment for Australia in the series. And this could be a test match where he'd want to come in handy, because for Australia, if they have to maintain and regain the momentum which they lost in Leeds, they would want Marnus Labuschagne to score big and others to chip along with Marnus Labuschagne. Because what's happening with Australia is they're losing their first wicket and they're trying to build up a partnership, and Marnus Labuschagne is unable to convert his starts which he's getting. Now, Marnus Labuschagne did score 40s and 30s. He's been trying to play out the tough sessions by trying to get out when it matters the most, when he's trying to convert that big score. Now, that is where it is going to be very important for Marnus Labuschagne to score big for Australia and to take the responsibility. Because remember, now the onus is on Australia, especially the big two, Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, to score bulk of the scores. Because with Travis Head, Mitchell Marsh and Cam Green, there is a sense of volatility. Because what I mean by volatile cricketers is that they can go on to score big, which they did, but at the same time they can go on to fail as well. They all play a certain manner, which they go out there and play aggressive brand of cricket, which is great. But on the flip side of things, you would want that stability with Usman Khawaja, Marnus Labuschagne, and Steve Smith scoring a lot of runs. At least a couple of them clicking and others trying to play along with them. And that's where this Australian team is at its absolute best. When you have a Travis Head, but alongside him, you have a Steve Smith or someone like a Marnus Labuschagne trying to go out there and play his own game, trying to hold one end up. Now, that is going to be upon Australia to really figure it out. But let's talk about the bowling, because in the fourth innings of the last match, Australia did find themselves in slight bit of bother at times. Mitchell Stark did ball well, Patrick Cummins did ball well, but now the question is, can Josh Hazlewood come and give them that back into that, can come back into the trio and give them the wickets up front? Now it is upon this trio to really lead the way, because with England, there is still an element of vulnerability, because a lot of these English batters are still used to playing a certain brand of way. The defensive techniques can be exposed time and time again. One thing Australia have done throughout the series, maybe the first test, is that they've kept Joe Root quite majorly, and that's a good sign for them. Though Joe Root did score a couple of 50s here and there, but the fact of the matter is, you've not let Joe Root off the hook, where Patrick Cummins have done a phenomenal job. Alongside him, even Mitchell Stark have applied enough pressure there. So that is where Australian bowling is going to be in the radar. Without a spinner, it's going to be tough for Patrick Cummins to manage the over rate, but at the same time, be aggressive, try to push the English batters down and try to get those wickets. Now, that is from the Australian perspective, because when you talk about the Australian team in itself, you have to talk about the bowlers they have, with Mitchell Stark, Josh Hazlewood, and Patrick Cummins. And especially in this test match, it's going to be upon someone like a Josh Hazlewood to come back into the squad and make instant impact. Let's look at the English squad from the flip side of things, because English squad is they've named their playing 11 as well now, which means Ben Duckett, Jack Crawley opens, and the most interesting thing is Moeen Ali will be playing at number 3 for England once again. Now, you did see Moeen Ali walk into bat number 3 in the last test match. A lot of people did raise their eyebrows as to why is Moeen Ali batting at number 3, but it certainly looks like a plan from English team to keep Moeen Ali at number 3 and see how it goes, because if Moeen Ali clicks, if Moeen Ali can score some quick ones in that kind of the fashion that English team have been playing, it is going to be bonus runs for them. Whatever runs he's going to be giving with the bat is going to be certainly bonus. If he's going to give a quick fire 30 to 40 or 50 runs, that's going to certainly change the momentum into English team, and at the same time help the English team to score those amount of runs what they can do. Now that's where Moeen Ali's role is going to be very crucial for in this test match. But again, now let's talk about that middle order, right? Topper Zach Crawley, he's looked good at times, but at the same time he's thrown away his wicket. Now Moeen Ali, he's going to be batting in a certain manner. He's not someone who's going to back his defensive technique and going to bat in a certain manner. Joe Root is going to be, it's going to be an important match for him. Harry Brook, as you all know, he likes batting quick, and he did come in good in his home ground last match around. But for Ben Stokes, after that heroics which he had in Lords, he'd want to come back and he would want to score some big ones, and even for Johnny Bairstow as well. But the good thing about the English squad is that they've got batting depth now, with Chris Woakes and Mark Wood being there. You saw that in the fourth innings of the last test match as well, how valuable that batting depth can really come in handy, especially when it comes to chasing those scores down. And Chris Woakes is such a valuable cricketer. He didn't miss out from the score in the first couple of test matches. And when Chris Woakes, whenever he plays in whichever team, he makes instant impact, both with the bat and ball. And in the longer form, and especially with the bat, he's been a formidable player. He keeps his ground. He doesn't throw his wicket cheaply. And he's got a very good technique as well. And even with the ball, he's an aggressive bowler. He likes to pitch the ball up and try to take the ball both in and away. Now, that's where Chris Woakes' valuable addition to this team has been phenomenal. And Mark Wood, of course. Let's talk about Mark Wood. Picked up five in that first innings in that last test match. And his impact, right? That X factorness which he carries, especially with that element of extra bit of pace, where he troubled Usman Khawaja with that beauty. And not just that, the way in which he bowled to the tail, that's something which the English team missed throughout the series in the first two test matches. They did not have an express pace bowler who could come in and charge those Australian tailenders. And for the goodness liking for Australians, what happened is that Mark Wood was doing that phenomenally well. So running and bowling with that pace, trying to trouble the tailenders, got those quick wickets, and also with that express pace which he's got, he's going to always have that element, and he's going to take the pitch out of the equation as well. And that is where you have to give credit to the English team for backing Mark Wood, getting him back into the ranks and going in for another test match. Now, the biggest call for this test match is that the hometown boy, James Anderson, makes his way back into the playing 11. Now, James Anderson was left out for the last test match for obvious reasons, but him finding a place back, obviously being his home ground in Old Trafford in Manchester, and to add to that, the matter is James Anderson is a valuable addition into this team. He's going to have his experience. I was true about James Anderson, Mark Wood, and Chris Woakes. You have to say they've got a phenomenal bowling attack, and let's add Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali's all-round caliber as well. And also, let's not forget Joe Root, who's been doing a decent hand with the ball in recent past. And Ben Stokes have shown faith in him to hand him over the ball whenever there's a partnership out there. And more often than not, he's going to break the partnership as well. So when it comes to English bowling, they look much better with the addition of Chris Wokes and Mark Wood, they look like a team which has got that balance finally set, because they've got a batter in number 8, which they did not really have in the first 2 test matches, which means they can bat deep. And also, they've got an express pace bowler to go in out there and clear up the tail. If the ball turns, Moeen Lee will come in handy, and also Joe Root, which the Australian team is definitely going to be missing. Without Nathan Lyon, they not have an off spinner of any caliber. But when you talk about Moeen Ali and Travis said, you have to say Moeen Ali is a much better bowler. Moeen Ali is a much established bowler as well. So that is where Moeen Ali is going to come in handy for the English team come day 3, day 4. Uh, let's talk about the battle now. The most important battle is Joe Root versus Steve Smith, isn't it? Because if you look at the last 10 years at least, the battle has been very constant between them. But if you have to talk about the last couple of years, Joe Root slightly took that edge ahead, you can say, because he's been scoring a lot of runs. Even after him leaving the captaincy, that did not really affect him. He was scoring a lot of runs during his tenure as captain and post captaincy as well. Under this new baseball regime, he is going to score a lot of runs. And that is where the battle is going to be drawn lines here. Now, if Australia goes on to win this test match, it's very clear. Australia will be taking the Ashes series. Now, for England, if they go on to win this test match, it'll be 2-2, and it'll be going on to the 5th test match. Now, that's a dream series for a lot of people. 2-2 going into the 5th test match in the Ashes. We've not seen that in a long, long while. And that is where this test match is going to be so much more potent and important in that kind of sense. But when you just talk about the way in which these two players will come up against each other and lock horns. Steve Smith, he did play well in the last couple of matches, and it's going to be so important for him once again, especially in this test match in Manchester, to come good, take the attack on, make sure the Mark Wood threat is neutralized. Because when you have someone like a Steve Smith who was very comfortable against pace, you would want him to play long, and you would want a big innings from Steve Smith in a match like this to set the tone if they're batting first, and to make sure Australia score big, and to just take England away and not give them any chance. Now, wherever we see in the pitch looks fairly flat. And there'll also be Manchester a quick scoring ground. Remember that you can pick up a lot of wickets in Manchester, but at the same time, Manchester a quick scoring ground. If you get your eye in, you can score runs at a very quick rate. And that is where someone like a Steve Smith will be coming in handy. And also in a ground like Manchester, the ball will tend to turn and come the 4th innings. You have seen historically the ball has tend to turn. That's why one surprising element from Australian team is a knockout with the spinner. But it'll again come down to something like a Travis had to ball those, or off spin, or maybe even for Marnus Labuschagne to chip in. And that's where England hold their aces high, because if the ball tends to turn from the straight in the 4th innings, and if Australia batting 4th, then Moeen Lee will come into the picture alongside Joe Root, and that's going to be a tough task for them to counter against, because Australia has a good amount of left-handers in the team, because Travis had tend to struggle quite a lot with spin. Even Mitchell Marsh and Cam Green are not the most comfortable players against spin. You can still say Cam Green is much better. And Alex Carey being there, another left-hander. Mitchell Stark, another left-hander. You have to say England are slightly looking better in terms of the balance with Moeen Ali, with Chris Wokes and Mark Wood, and that's where it's going to be important. And when it comes to this year as well, you have to say Steve Smith has got the noses ahead in this year, especially when it comes to test hundreds. But let's be very honest, they're not very far away, isn't it? Because Joe Root scores 100 this match, they become on equal footing. But Steve Smith would also want to take that extra bit of edge ahead, because if Steve Smith's going to score big in this match, that certainly means Australia will be in a commanding position. Now let's look at the most number of centuries against a particular team, and Steve Smith loves playing against the English team. He's loved always. Remember that comeback test match which he had in 2019 after all the saga which went along. He made a comeback against this team, and he went on to do phenomenally well there. So that is where Steve Smith is going to be a very important factor in this team, as I already mentioned. But alongside him, I would like to take the name once again. It's going to be Marnus Labuschagne and Usman Khawaja, because if they both can be a foil on Steve Smith, it's going to be very interesting. And now, very important statement. Now, the question of James Anderson coming back. You saw James Anderson wasn't the best of rhythm, both in Lords and also in the first test match. It just looked like James Anderson wasn't really bowling well, but now it's about time for him to change it around. If James Anderson want to get in the honours board, he's not really gotten in there in his home ground. This is a moment for him to get in the honours board of Manchester's honours board, and also come back into the series and help England to level the series. Now, after the second test match, you saw a statement from Ben Stokes that they're going to look into the series as a 3-test match series, and they're going to play accordingly. And that's something which they've done. And for them to make that statement and to come back hard in the next test match, that speaks characters about the team they've been and the culture they built around Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes. So you have to say they both have done a phenomenal job in terms of building that culture their aggressive instincts in terms of how they've gone about. Of course, there were questions after the second test match as to the sustainability of baseball, whether it can sustain over a longer period of time, whether aggressive brand of cricket can it sustain in conditions where the ballers are going to be challenging you. But the fact of the matter, Stokes really did back the team to come back harder in the test match, and they've done that pretty well as well. Now going into this, just into this fourth test match as well, you have to say they are not going to change much. They're going to come back hard at this team. They're going to definitely set trends as to how they want to really attack. Now, who are the players to watch out for? Now, when I talk about players to watch out for, I'll pick up bowlers because bowlers are the ones who definitely going to ultimately decide it. If you have to go to Australia, it has to come down to Patrick Cummins, the captain, because if he goes on to pick up 3 to 4 wickets in the first innings, or in combination, if he can pick up 6 odd wickets in the entire Test match, he's going to hold aces for the Australian team. Because if he can lead the way, then along with him, then you have an attack bowler in Mitchell Stark. Then you have Josh Hazelwood, who's going to be clinical in terms of his lengths. And then you have Mitchell Marsh and Cam Green, who can be change-ups as well. But it's going to come down to that bowler in someone like a Patrick Cummins as to how he's going to operate. Now, when you talk about the English team, I have to pick up Chris Wokes, definitely so, because Chris Wokes' addition into this team has definitely given this team a lot more confidence. That also means this team can go out there and express themselves up top, and knowing that they have a batting depth. And with the ball, they can be more attacking because Chris Wokes, we've always seen in England, his lengths are always among the 6 meter length, and he tends to drive, get the batters to drive, and that's his biggest strength. He gets the batters out on the slips and on the cordon primarily because of his lengths. He's an aggressive bowler when it comes to his lengths. He's got a quick ball as well. He balls in the high 130s and he gets the ball to shape along. That late movement which Chris Wokes brings is the reason why you have to say Chris Wokes is a phenomenal bowler. In these conditions, at least, Chris Wokes is going to be the main bowler, and Mark Wood when it comes to cleaning up the tail. Like what Mark Wood did in the last match. But again, Chris Wokes is going to be that element of change in when it comes to the English bowling attack. And James Anderson is going to be an interesting bowler to watch because remember, there are already a lot of calls on James Anderson's form trying to deteriorate. Remember, he's 40 or 41. He's going to be 41 in a couple of months. So he's not in his peak, definitely. And it doesn't look like this season he's been in his peak because he had a couple of injuries. And with the bowler being in his late 40s and in his late 30s and 40s, and him being a fast bowler, every time he goes on to have a bad performance, there are eyebrows which will be raised in the media, in the team, when it comes to selection, whether does he deserve a place in the playing 11 or does he deserve to be put out. So there's a very important test match for James Anderson, the bowler, to get a spot in the fifth test match and to perform well at his home ground, which he's never certainly done it. He's done well, but it's about time for him to make a statement and say that I'm still there and thereabouts and get closer to that 700 test wickets mark. Because see, a lot of ballers dream to pick up 400 wickets. A lot of fast bowlers dream to pick up 300 odd wickets. Now here you're talking about a fast bowler who's going to be inching closer to that 700 mark and who's still fit to go out there and ball with that pace, with that endurance, and with his lines being ever so prominent in terms of his accuracy. So you have to give credit to someone like a James Anderson there, and he would want to touch that 700 mark before he certainly makes a call in his career as well. So, guys, do remember to comment down your playing 11 for today, and what is your combined playing 11? Then who's going to go out there and perform? Not certainly a fantasy team, but who do you have loved to have seen in the team as well? That's about it from today's stream. We are certainly hoping that it's another exciting game of Ashes where two teams are going to lock horns and you're going to get good results out of this test match as well. If you're new here, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and also share this video so we can keep bringing you this exciting content. And also, do not forget to follow our Instagram page and do check out our course on cricket analytics and football analytics as well very soon. Thank you and have a good time, all of you. See you all very soon. Bye-bye.